Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Joe Biden set out their opposing views over the Ukraine issue in a video call on Tuesday. Biden warned of strong economic sanctions on Russia if it invades Ukraine. Putin countered with a demand for guarantees that NATO stop its eastward expansion. The 2 hours virtual talks on Tuesday came as Russia gathered its troops near its Ukrainian border and bilateral ties fell to their lowest level in 3 decades. The Kremlin said the two sides agreed that Russia and the US should hold further discussions. Now, for more on that meeting, let's cross live to our correspondent Sean Kellips in Washington, D.C. Sean, you've been following this very closely. So to what extent did this dialogue between Putin and Biden reach the results the two sides had hoped for?
Well, it's very difficult to say if the two sides reached what they wanted to do. What I can tell you is the two sides, neither of them gave an inch. And what many people are calling what's going on right now perhaps the toughest foreign policy challenge that U.S. President Joe Biden has faced since he took office. Biden made it clear in speaking to President Putin that he would like to find a diplomatic solution to what is going on. The United States, its NATO allies are very concerned because Russia has amassed tens of thousands of troops on the border with Ukraine. And it's not just the troops, it's also supply lines have gone in. There are fuel supplies that have gone up as well. And also medical facilities have gone up in the region. So many people concerned about a possible invasion of the Ukraine. Now, Biden said he wanted to find a diplomatic solution to this, but he said if there wasn't one, and speaking very frankly with Putin today, he said the United States is prepared to do things now in 2021 that they were not prepared to do back in 2014 when he was vice president and Barack Obama was the president of the United States. At that point is when Russia annexed the Crimea and the United States offered some economic sanctions, but they weren't that punishing, and the U.S. really did not react terribly greatly at the time. Well, now, after hearing from people within Biden's circle, this is what they have to say and how focused they are on this at this moment.
We would provide additional defensive materiel to the Ukrainians above and beyond that which we are already providing. And we would fortify our NATO allies on the eastern flank with additional capabilities in response to such an escalation. He also told President Putin there's another option: de-escalation and diplomacy. The United States and our European allies would engage in a discussion that covers larger strategic issues, including our strategic concerns with Russia and Russia's strategic concerns.
Now, there was no finger pointing, no wagging of fingers. It was characterized as a very business-like discussion between these two world leaders. But the United States made it clear that they will support sovereignty for the Ukraine, and went on to say, even though there was a lot of give and take, that the United States was going to dig its heels in this time, and that punishing economic sanctions could be coming if indeed Putin continued to move forward. Afterward, the two sides, both for Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden, their various staffs took all the information that was gathered during this 2-hour virtual discussion, and now they're meeting to decide where to go next.
Sean, what about Russia's strategic concerns and massive military presence of NATO along the Russian border? Because this time Russia is calling for NATO to stop eastward enlargement. Any signs on how Washington and its allies will respond?
Well, that's a great point, because after this discussion, we do know that Biden talked with all of the NATO allies, at least if Biden did himself, then his staff certainly did, to see where they weigh in on this, because obviously this is a great concern in that region as well. But Vladimir Putin, as you mentioned, basically flipped the tables on the United States and said right now the concern in Russia is over its sovereignty, and the fact that they're concerned about NATO perhaps flexing its muscles in that region as well. This is something that the United States said simply is rejecting at all after hearing the information from Putin. But it certainly is a concern from Russia, and one that probably hasn't got as much attention here in the United States as it has in other areas. But this is a measure that is going to move forward, and certainly all sides are hoping that a diplomatic solution can be found to this.
Thank you very much. Our correspondent Sean Kellips in Washington, D.C.